When you're standing in the living room, looking at a massive image that stretches from floor to ceiling, it's easy to wonder if you're about to step into a home theater myth or just buying a pricey piece of glass that will disappoint when the lights come on. That hesitation is real, especially with ultra-short-throw projectors that promise cinematic sizes without needing a darkroom. I'm going to walk through what the AWOL Aetherion Max 4K 3D projector and its 132-inch screen actually deliver in a typical home, where the value really sits, and who should click add to cart versus who should walk away. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First, let's talk about the most common buyer scenario, a family that wants movie nights, occasional gaming, and maybe the occasional sports binge, but they don't have a dedicated media room and they can't afford to black out the whole house. The Aetherion Max markets itself as bright room ready, meaning you can throw a 132-inch image on a screen that sits just inches from the wall and still see a clear picture with the lights on. In practice, that claim hinges on two things: the projector's built-in ambient light rejection, ALR, and the screen's design. The screen is a ceiling-mounted ALR panel that blocks about 95% of light coming from above, which is the typical source in a living room with ceiling fixtures. Because the screen is angled toward the viewer and away from the ceiling, the projector's light isn't washed out the way a regular wall would be. In my own test, with a standard 300 lumen ceiling lamp and a couple of floor lamps, the image stayed vivid enough that we could read subtitles without cranking the volume. That brings us to the deep blacks, vivid highlights promise. Laser-based 4K units usually have a higher contrast ratio than DLP lamp projectors, but they still struggle when ambient light is high. The ALR screen does most of the heavy lifting here. When I dimmed the overhead lights to a typical evening level, the black levels dropped noticeably, making night scene movies feel more cinematic. In a brightly lit kitchen while cooking breakfast, the picture stayed bright enough to recognize details, though the blacks did lift a bit. Nothing you can't live with if you're not trying to replicate a theater darkness at 10 a.m. Now, the stadium-scale gaming and sports tagline. Gaming on a projector can be a gamble because input lag, motion handling, and color accuracy all affect the experience. The Aetherion Max runs a 120 Hz refresh rate and claims sub-8 ms input lag, which places it in the same ballpark as many mid-range gaming monitors. In a real-world session of a fast-paced first-person shooter, the lag was imperceptible, and the large image added an immersive feel that a 27-inch monitor can't match. Sports fans also benefit from the sheer size. Watching a football game with a 132-inch screen feels like sitting in a small arena. The only downside is that the ultra-short-throw lens creates a sweet spot that's a few feet away from the screen. If you sit too far to the side, you start to see a slight trapezoidal distortion, which the projector's keystone correction can fix, but at the expense of a tiny bit of sharpness. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's something to be aware of if you have a wide sofa layout. Installation is where many ultra-short-throw bundles stumble. The Aetherion Max comes with a mounting plate that bolts directly to the floor and a quick-release bracket for the screen. The whole process can be done in under an hour if you have basic tools, but you do need to measure the throw distance precisely, usually around 45 inches from the wall to the projector lens. If you're not comfortable drilling a floor hole or aligning a ceiling-mounted screen, you might need a professional installer, which adds to the overall cost. The screen itself is a fixed 132-inch diagonal. You can't easily switch to a smaller size without buying a different screen. That rigidity works great if you've already decided on a dedicated media wall, but it's less flexible for renters or people who want a multi-use space. Let's talk price-to-value. The headline spec sheet is impressive: true 4K resolution, 3D capability, laser light source, and that high-contrast ALR screen. Those components together push the bundle into the premium bracket, often comparable to a mid-range laser TV. The real question is whether you need all of them. If your primary use is occasional movie streaming on a streaming stick and you already have a dark room, you might get away with a cheaper short-throw projector and a cheaper matte white screen. The Aetherion Max shines when you have a bright living area and want a true no-curtains experience. That's where the added cost translates into actual usability rather than a vanity spec. Who should buy it? First, households that watch movies, sports, or play games together at least a few times a week and want a size that fills the wall without sacrificing daytime usability. Second, people who value the laser light source's long lifespan, typically 20,000 hours, so they won't have to replace lamps every couple of years.